and our subtopic today is going to be listening skills. We are going to talk about listening, what entails listening, what listening is about, the challenges, the barriers of listening, and everything to do with listening, and what is expected of you as a student by the Kenya National Examination Council as you prepare for the KCSE. So welcome for today's lesson. As we begin, so we are going to ask ourselves a few questions here and there about what is listening, what do you do before listening, what do you do during listening, and all that. So welcome to the lesson. So we are going to ask ourselves the first question here. What is listening? Listening is getting information, language, or communication through the ears. We all have ears, and unless we are challenged in one way or the other. So we need to hear sounds or voices for us to hear. So listening is active. Active listening has to do with where one learns, or rather listens with a focus, a direction, and with a purpose. So that is what listening is. You hear the sounds or voices that are made, and then you focus with a certain purpose. So that is what we call active listening. There are things that you need to do before listening. And one of those things is, let's ask before anything, why do we listen? Why do we always, have to listen? There are many reasons, myriad of reasons as to why people listen. One is to enjoy. You listen to enjoy, to learn, to critique, to get new information, to encourage the speaker to continue speaking. When you're listening and somebody is speaking, you're encouraging that person to keep talking so that you can get the information that you want. So we also listen to improve relations. You improve relationships with people because listening is key. Before listening, before you participate in active listening, there are various things that you need to do. You need to prepare before listening. That is, you can have things like having appropriate writing materials like pens and notebooks, which you will use to note down whatever you're going to listen. You're going to listen to a speech on something like drug abuse in schools and why students are into drugs and such kinds of things. Then the speech revolves around drugs. So you are going to have a notebook where you can write down the main points that the speaker will focus on. And then you can research on the topic to have early details. You research on the topic. If it's about drugs, let's just stick to drugs. You can have an earlier research on the usage of drugs, the kinds of drugs. In other words, you're going to have prior information before the speaker gives you um, the speech. So you need to prepare questions you would like addressed by the speaker. So you prepare. Once you've researched, you may also have a few questions which you will want to address, or rather you like addressed by the speaker. And then it's always good to take note of the subject matter beforehand. Get to know the kind of the topic that is going to be discussed. So as you go to listen, you have prior information about what you are going to listen to. It's always good to know what you're going to listen to, especially in arranged speeches and that kind of a thing. Then there are various skills that you need to know before listening, and what you should actually do to have an appropriate, listening session, a very effective listening session. And one of those things is that you need to move closer to the speaker. When you're close to the speaker, you're able to hear what he's saying, he or she is saying. You're able to get the gestures, the facial expressions of the speaker. So you get everything that the speaker is saying, whether verbally or even non-verbally. So move closer to the speaker. It helps a lot. Then you need to concentrate and avoid any distractor. There are many distractors when you're listening. There are noises all over. There are things that will distract you. So it is always good to avoid them when you are listening. Maintain appropriate sitting posture. Upright posture is the most is the most recommended posture of sitting while you're listening. So sit upright, maintain that appropriate sitting posture, and then you can always ask relevant questions during and after presentation. And then during the speech, the speaker may ask questions. So when you are asked questions, answer them relevantly. That is a skill that you need to have for listening. One of them is answering the questions that the speaker may ask. Then you need to take notes, have appropriate eye contact with the speaker. Why do we always have to have that appropriate eye contact with the speaker? It's because the speaker will speak some things without necessarily saying them. That is through gestures, through facial expressions, through such. So for you to have an appropriate eye contact means that you are able to get even the emotions and the feelings of the speaker. It is always important for listening, for one to have that eye contact with the speaker. What shows that your audience, the audience you are with is actually listening to the speaker. Now, there are various things that the audience will do that will tell that they are listening. And you being part of the audience, you'll notice that when the audience nods appropriately and at important points, asking relevant questions, and even sitting in an appropriate manner, that is maybe upright posture, and even laughing at the humor and the jokes that the speaker will.
This isn't his voice.
Will
This
put.
isn't Totula's voice.
So when the audience shifts facial expressions as per the mood and the message, you also get to know that actually the audience is listening. So there are others that you will notice that the audience is not actually listening when the members of the audience are rocking in a chair. They pass notes among themselves. They interrupt the speaker without a reason. They drum on seats, biting their nails. They yawn anyhow. It shows that they are tired and they are not listening to the speaker. They keep looking out or even looking at their watches. They ask irrelevant questions to the speakers. They murmur among themselves. They boo. They laugh anyhow and non-stop. So that shows that this audience is not listening to the.
No, connect on your phone.
Things that you need to look at before listening. So that
a small thing.
As you go to listen, you ensure that you
no. Sasa mimi nikipata masimu na nini
pass not
just
not turn up the speaker. You don't bite your nails. You don't yawn, mama, boo, laugh anyhow. So you don't you don't do all those things, because those things will hinder your listening, like laughing anyhow. In fact, you stop the speaker from talking, and after that you may not actually get what the speaker meant to communicate to you.
I don't have this app. I don't have this.
How are you supposed to overcome barriers? You
can barely understand. Let me just quit.
Please mute your microphones, please. You can mute your microphones, please. I'm sorry for that. Overcoming barriers of listening.
Not at least like that.
Please.
And another line between.
So, as I was saying, one of the things that you need to do to overcome barriers of listening is to anticipate the speaker's points. So anticipate what the speaker is going to say, and then sit upright, respond to questions by the speaker, take notes, have an appropriate eye contact with the speaker, and then you can always paraphrase the message in your own words. Now, paraphrasing means that saying what I'm saying without necessarily using my words, but using your own words. So that is what we call paraphrasing. So overcoming barriers of listening, you need to be there with the speaker to anticipate what he or she is going to talk about. Have a sitting, a sitting posture that is appropriate. Then you can respond to his or her questions, and then take your notes, have an appropriate eye contact with the speaker, and it's always important to paraphrase what you've listened to in your own words. What should the audience do? What should the audience do after listening? One of the things that the audience should and must do is thanking the speaker. That is one of the things that an audience should do. Maybe by a vote of thanks by one of them. Then there is clapping to show appreciation. The audience can stamp their feet. After listening, you can ask relevant questions. And asking relevant questions here, we mean that the questions must be in relation to the topic that the speaker has talked about, to shed more light on what he or she has said. So it is important to always ask questions after a speech when given a chance. Then you relevantly answer the questions that the speaker has given at the end of the presentation. That shows that you have really understood what the speaker was talking about. Now, that is generally what you need to do before and during listening, and even after listening. So it is important to note that these are, listening skills are tested in Poweron KCSE, and I'll give you an example of a question that was set in 2016, paper 1, question D. And the question was, you are listening to a speech about careers by a visitor to your school. A few minutes into the speech, you look around and notice that some of your fellow students are yawning while others are showing signs of definite restlessness. What would be the likely cause of the student's behavior? What will be the likely cause of the student's behavior? And then the second part of that question, what will you do to ensure you continue listening effectively? So if you go back to what we've said, what will be the likely cause of the student's behavior? Is that, if I can take you a little bit back, this is the reason why the members of the audience are not listening. So some of them are not seated on you know, in a posture that is appropriate. They are not having appropriate eye contact with the speaker. And there are so many other ways you can answer that question. What will be the likely cause of the student's behavior? Is because the problem may also be with the speaker. When you're answering that question, you look at both sides. Maybe the speaker is not audible enough. And that's why we said at the beginning that you move closer to the speaker, to the speaker, so that you're able to hear every word that he or she speaks for better understanding. So what will be the likely cause of the student's behavior is that those students may not have seated on the right, seated upright. The speaker may not be audible enough, and the students may have even some physiological problems, like they are hungry, for example. They don't want to listen. Maybe the speaker is taking too long, so they lose their concentrations. They are not taking notes, so they get bored because they are not with the speaker. They are in their own world. They are looking outside. They can't wait to leave the auditorium where the speech is taking place. So you need to look at all those factors that may make a student have restlessness in class while listening. What will you do to ensure you continue listening effectively? Now you do the opposite. What will you do to ensure you continue listening effectively? 1, sit upright. Sit upright. 2, have a notebook to write down the points. Ask questions. You can always ask the speaker to if you're not hearing, if the speaker is a bit low in terms of the voice projection, you can always ask the speaker to raise his voice, and it is important that way. There are many other things that you can do. You can ask relevant questions. You know, you can laugh at the humor. You can have that facial expression that denotes that you're actually following the speaker. Shift your facial expressions as per the mood and the message of the speaker. So that was 2016 paper 1, question D. Now, before we wind up, I am requesting you, maybe you can type your question on this subtopic that we've talked about, maybe before we wind up. So that is basically what listening is all about, and how it can be tested for KCSE. So I'm waiting for your questions as we wind up. If you have a question, this is your opportunity to ask so that we can wind up together as we wish each other well and safety during this period. Since there are no message, no questions, and I want to thank you for joining us today for this lesson. Keep looking for Longhorn Publishers social media account for when the next lesson will take place and what it will be about. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you so much.